Jayam Shri Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Satara, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON VBT Founder Acharya, our Lord and Master Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sukha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Sri Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Sundar Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Srimati Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Vrindamai Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Dham Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Dham Shri Vrindam Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yuga Dharma Ki Jai. Lord Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories, all glories, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Gauranga.
So thank you all very much for joining this evening, and thank you, Malti Devi, for taking out your valuable time. So I'll make a brief introduction and then I'll hand it over. So for those of you who do not know, Malti Devi Dasi joined ISKCON in San Francisco and was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in early 1967. She is one of the earliest disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and she became an integral part of the pioneer years of ISKCON. In 1968, along with her little baby, Saraswati, so Malti Devi went as a part of a team of 6 devotees to establish Krishna consciousness in the United Kingdom. And that resulted in some incredibly epic adventures. The release of the phenomenal Radha Krishna Temple album in 1969, produced by the Beatle George Harrison. This album was a huge hit and includes Mahamantra and a number of devotional songs. She also traveled quite often with her husband Shyam Sundar Prabhu, who was Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary. And among other tasks, Malti Devi Dasi cooked for Srila Prabhupada.
Well, actually, we were sent to after UK. We were sent to India to begin, in Prabhupada's words, the World Sankirtan Party. He had spoke about this quite a bit. So he sent a little blue aerogram typed. We received it in London, and he had 10 persons listed, and my husband and myself were one of them, and Gurudas and Jamuna. And at the end, so he said wanted us to come to India to start the World Sankirtan Party. And at the end, he wrote in his own handwriting, and baby Saraswati.
So wonderful, wonderful. And of course, she did so much preaching in India. And as part of her services at that time was purchasing murtis, and this is a service she's been continuing to carry out for various temples throughout the decades. She then returned to the UK to establish the property known as the Bhaktivedanta Manor in Watford, which is world famous now. And she also did a lot of traveling in Netherlands, Belgium, and so on. She's been instrumental in establishing some other incredible institutions, like the all-female ISKCON temple in Ohio, which got
well, it used to be all ladies. It was called the Mataji Mandir, but it's quite integrated now for quite some time.
But it was an award-winning one, and since 1998, Malti Devi Dasi has been a member of the governing body commission, and has been serving in a number of areas in the United States, Gainesville, and Miami, and Florida, and West Virginia, and a number of other places. So anyway, if I give all the details, then it'll take forever. So without any further ado, I would like to request, well, first I'd like to request Neelmani Prabhu, our president, to welcome all the devotees. You just take a moment
Hare Krishna to you.
Prabhu, please go ahead. Thank you.
Somehow I'm not able to hear you.
I'm going to have to, yes, okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. And thank you, Malati Prabhu, for joining us today. It's
thank you for your kind invitation.
We're all looking forward very much to
You're setting a really good standard for lockdown programs.
That's by the mercy of His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj, who is also in the audience today. So also like to thank Maharaj for continuing to inspire us and encourage us to continue with these programs, and invite some wonderful devotees over time to share their realizations and enlighten us, nurture us, and encourage us to continue in these challenging times. But I know all the devotees are very much looking forward to your class, so I won't take any more time and request you to continue. Hare Krishna.
Om Gyan Tambrandasya Janana Sakalaya Chakchum Militam Yena Tasme Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paskachude Satarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I think before I start, I would like to give you a little darshan of somebody who's very dear to me. So I'm going to flip the computer around, and tell me if you can see, because I won't be able to see how it's working. Are you able to see?
Yes, we can see. It looks Jai Shri Prabhupada. Wonderful.
You're the Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, actually, he's not an actual deity. He was part of the Fate Museum in Detroit. And he actually used to be able to move. He'd lean forward and he had a pencil in his hand, and his hand would like write, and he would greet people when they came in. And then somehow or other, I guess he stopped working, and they had put him in some closet, and it was a long, narrow closet, and he was in the back, and then more stuff started going in that closet, and then they just forgot he was there too. But I always noticed that closet being full of stuff, just stuff. And I was always saying, you gotta clean this out. It's just, it's anyway, they cleaned it out, and there he was. And they took him over to Farmington Hills Temple, which really had no place for him. And then I came and I saw him. What is he doing here? How did he get here? And they just said, we don't know, but we don't know what to do with him. And I said, well, I know what can be done. And so I put him in my car, and I had to go to this high security prison. I had an appointment. And when you drive in, you have to give them your ID and everything. So I gave the ID and the car ID, and I'm sitting there waiting for him to wave me on. And he goes, and what about him? the ID for your passenger. And I looked, I said, oh, he's so famous. He goes all over the world, and no one ever asks for his ID. And the man looked a little like shocked. And then because I didn't want to have any problems, I quickly said, it's a mannequin, it's a mannequin. And then he said something really funny. He goes, oh, you could go in the Hav lane. The Hav lane is where you have to have 2 or more people. So he's telling me I can go in the Hav lane with Srila Prabhupada. Anyway, he's a very famous personality. So I had to come up with a title for the lecture. So the title was, Don't Become a Glowworm. So just to give some little picture, ribbons of light slashed through the darkness that is New York City during the giant power failure in November of '65. So a few of you might have been around for that. The ribbons were formed by the headlights of the vehicles moving along the highway. And it so happened that about 5:15 p.m. Eastern time, half an hour after sunset, the lights, electrical lights, began to flicker and flicker and flicker some more. Later, the New York Times would describe it as a wild flickering for about a minute, like a silent alarm. And then 12 minutes later, just as millions of New Yorkers were starting home from work, like this entire city went totally black. It was Tuesday, November 9th, 1965, and it was the beginning of the biggest, most famous blackout the country had ever seen. And it wasn't just New York City. Much of the northeastern USA had gone dark, and parts of 9 states plus 3 Canadian provinces. And in all, 30 million people were left stumbling around, trying to remember where they'd last seen their flashlight or candles and matches. In Manhattan, 800,000 people were stuck in subways that were now totally stalled. Thousands of more were stuck in elevators mid-floor, or just the doors closed not able to get out. With stoplights being out of order, ordinary citizens were now directing traffic, and doctors were delivering babies and performing surgeries by flashlight, surgeries that they had started before the blackout occurred. And for the New York-based news media, this was the story of a lifetime, but there was one problem. Getting the story out depended on electricity, the very commodity that made the news in the first place and now was absent. The editor of Life magazine observed, here was an astonishing news story unfolding all around us. And here we were, the New York editorial staff, trapped in a skyscraper with no lights and jammed phones and stalled elevators. What to speak of the modern means of communications did not yet exist. Wireless communications, they weren't on the radar yet. So working by the light of candles, scrounged from nearby hardware stores, restaurants, and even churches, the Times reporters and editors put together their November 10th edition, which was published in New Jersey, in an area that was unaffected by the outage. But this publisher graciously agreed to typeset and print. And the result was a very bizarre 10-page edition in Times style, but with the Newark news type. So the front page practically told the story by itself. The headline was, Power Failure Snarls Northeast. 800,000 are caught in subways. Autos tied up. The city gropes in the dark. So when the New York Post managed to get out an edition later in the day, it took a more minimalist approach. And against a photo of the darkened city, there was a one word and a question mark. Why? During this, Srila Prabhupada sat and chanted in the dark on the 5th floor of the office complex where he was staying in Manhattan. He wasn't staying in a residential apartment or flat. He had a small office without any windows to the outside in Dr. Mishra's part of his yoga complex. In India, power failures are quite common. So Prabhupada was a little surprised to find the same thing in America, but he remained undisturbed. And then Dr. Mishra sent a fellow with a candle and some fruit. And he brought that up to Prabhupada, and he saw that Prabhupada was just sitting peacefully, totally undisturbed in the dark, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And when he explained to Prabhupada what had happened, Prabhupada responded, he just remained in his place, chanting, taking full shelter of Krishna. And we know that for Krishna consciousness, he was prepared to do anything and work in the city as actively as anyone. But if all facilities were taken away, he was equally prepared to see this was Krishna's will and turned his full attention to chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So Arjuna's name is Krishna Saka, and he's also sometimes called Krishna because Arjuna's bodily features were similar, almost similar to Krishna's features. He had returned to Hastinapur after a long absence, and he was very morose. And his elder brother, Yudhishthira, was inquiring what was the cause of this moroseness. Was it for this reason? Was it for that reason? Actually, he was unhappy on account of being separated from Krishna because Krishna had departed. Similarly, not only Arjuna, but all of us, we're also morose, and it's for the same reason. Krishna is a living entity. Arjuna is also a living entity, and we are also living entities. So we're also unhappy because we are separated from Krishna. The modern philosophers And scientists may suggest, they do suggest, well, they can do something. They can eventually improve the world situation, the social situation, and in their own way. But that is factually not possible. We are unhappy only on account of being separated from Krishna. That's all, every one of us. And that unhappiness is revealed in various situations and manners because we're all the proverbial fish out of water, trying to adjust and rearrange the furniture in the room, so to speak, thinking, this will make me happy. That will make me happy. Srimad Bhagavatam explains the futility of such endeavors, yet we go on trying with our always disturbed minds thinking, now I will be happy, if, I will be happy. But it never happens. In Upanishad, it is said that Paramatma, Krishna, and the living entity are sitting on the same tree. Samani Vrikshe. One living entity is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other living entity is simply witnessing. Anumanta, witnessing. So Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. Vishwara Sarvabhuttanam Hridayate Arjuna Tishtati. Bhagavad Gita 1861. Because without his sanction, the living entity cannot do anything. Savasya chaham hridesani vishto. Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart. 15:15. And if the living entity wants to do something out of his own whims, which is generally the case, Krishna gives good consultation that this will not make you happy. Don't do that. Don't do this. But we are persistent. We are insistent. One time Prabhupada described it as dog-like stubbornness. We'll do it anyway. Knowing this, Krishna sanctions Paramatma. All right, you do it. Go on. Do it at your own risk. Every one of us is very intimately connected with Krishna because Krishna is sitting in everyone's heart. And Krishna is so kind that he is simply waiting. When is this foolish mortal going to turn his face towards me? He's simply looking. He's so kind. But we living entities turn our face to everything except Krishna, even when it means suffering. That is our unfortunate position. I personally had such an unfortunate incident in my life that through the bewildering glare of the illusory energy, my mind became disturbed and attracted to something. And Krishna so kindly, literally showed me, if you do this, here's what's going to happen. And I do mean literally. I remember exactly, it was in France. And our temple at the time was in a beautiful area. And we were very close to the Champs-Élysées, which is a very famous landmark. And across from our temple was like a meridian of grass and beautiful trees that went along the whole way of the Champs-Élysées. And I was walking there and I was considering my situation. And all of a sudden, it was like in a theater when they're going to show a movie, the lights go off, but this was almost like the reverse and the lights went on. I mean, it was daylight, but it became this brightness. And I just stopped walking as if I was in another world, another dimension. And suddenly it was like one of these old-fashioned films where they're cranking it, and one by one you see the picture And one by one, I was shown my life in the future. Generally, sometimes people have flashbacks of their life. But in this case, I was given a forward glimpse, one by one. And I was seeing myself in these little frames. And it was not a very pleasant future. And then all of a sudden, I just shook my head and I just thought, all right, but I'm going to do it anyway. Totally, unfortunately, foolish. Srila Prabhupada wrote that how we were so attracted by the glare of Maya, we become bewildered. And he asked his spiritual master, make me a miracle, your divine grace. Unfortunately, at that moment, I did not make that request. But the Lord never leaves us, even when we turn our back on him. We want to be happy with so many ideas, making our own plans, doing it our way. But conditioned souls do not know that the actual process of obtaining happiness is by pleasing Krishna. We do not know what is missing. And that missing point, we are giving from the Krishna consciousness movement. Take Krishna and be happy. This is our Krishna consciousness movement. Take Krishna and be happy. And we can show you how to do that. So why are we in the material world and not in the spiritual world? In the spiritual world, no one else can become the enjoyer, bhokta. That is only for Krishna. Bhoktaram yalgyataphaisham sarvaloka maheshwaram, 529. There is no mistake. We are also living entities. They are also living entities. But they know without a doubt, without a second guessing, they're not thinking maybe it's this or maybe it's that. They know that the real enjoyer is the real proprietor, is Krishna. That is the spiritual kingdom. There's no conflict. And similarly, in this material world, if we understand and we accept perfectly well that we are not the enjoyer, only Krishna is enjoyer, then we are in the spiritual world. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying to convince everyone that we are not the enjoyer, that the only enjoyer is Krishna, and it is we who are to be enjoyed by him. And therefore it behooves us to become firmly convinced. In every religion, it is accepted. Christian religion also says, oh God, give us our daily bread. But this bread, we cannot manufacture. The ingredients come from God. That is the Vedic version also. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitanam eko yo bahunam vidatati kamam. God, our Krishna, he gives everything, all the necessities of life. But if we only take the enjoyable things, the things that we like, then we become entangled. And if we accept things that are to be enjoyed, as offered by Krishna, Tena Taktena Vunjataha, Isapanishad, Mantra 1, then we become happy. So there are the two methods, pravritti and nivritti. And pravritti means turning away from God. I have got this inclination to do this or to do that, to enjoy this or enjoy that. And why not? I shall do it. I've got my freedom. That is Maya. That is illusion. Nirvritti means turning inward, turning towards the Supreme Lord. We cannot violate or avoid the laws of Krishna or the laws of nature. Who is really independent? Here we are sitting. Who can say, I'm independent of everything. That is our mistake. And by misusing our independence, we are suffering in this material world in so many ways. That has to be reformed. That has to be checked. And that is our Krishna consciousness movement. That is our mission, preaching and teaching. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has preached Jivara Swarupai Nitya Krishna Das. We living entities are eternally servants of Krishna. That is our position. But if we deny this position, now why have I become a servant of Krishna? Why should I serve anyone? I am independent. Immediately suffering begins. Immediately. Krishna Bhuliya Jiva Bhogavancha Kare. As soon as we desire to enjoy independently, immediately captured by Maya. Bhagavatam 2:4 says, Tehapatya kaladristuvesra vikma atma shanisvat asatva api tesham nidanam pramata pashyanapi na pashyati. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too much attached to the fallible soldiers like their body, children and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Each and every one of us in illusion are thinking, I am independent. And my wife, my children, my society, they are my soldiers. If I'm in danger, they will help me. This is called illusion. Because we have become mad after this so-called independence. Independence from God. We are thinking these things will help us. They will protect us. But this is Maya. Tesham nidanam. Everyone will be destroyed. No one will be able to give us protection. If real protection is wanted, one has to take protection of Krishna. And that is the essential instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharma paritvajam mamakam saranam vraja, 866. You're thinking that so many things will give protection, but they will also be finished. We can't depend upon them. Krishna says, you just surrender unto me. I'll give you protection. Aham tam sarva pavebhyo mokshasyasmi mamasuka. This is real protection. This is real protection. Everyone falsely thinking of independence, and all the while depending on a false platform, thinking of protection from a tilting, tottering platform of the material world. So we have to take shelter of Krishna and Krishna only. Krishna is very friendly to all of us, and therefore he comes down from Vaikuntha to inform us. That is the Bhagavad Gita. That is elaborately explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the only thing. People are faced with so many crises, so many problems. The reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, what is the solution of this coming crisis? Prabhupada replied, the solution is Krishna consciousness. It's already there, but you will not take it. The solution is already there. So these nonsense politicians, they're spoiling the situation, spoiling everything, and they'll not accept responsibility, and nor will they accept the solution. Take to Krishna consciousness and everything can be solved. Always remember that our preaching work is dealing with 4 types of men. The Duskritina means full of sinful activities, miscreants. One who behaves badly, breaks the laws, Duskritina. And the Mudha. Actually, Prabhupada always says, fools, rascals, asses. And sometimes you know, dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. And sometimes devotees kind of cringe, like, oh my God, he's saying that. What are people going to think? But actually, I was looking up in a dictionary, a Sanskrit dictionary online, and that's the definition given in the dictionary: fools, rascals, ass-like person. Anyway, Naradama, the lowest of mankind, the non-devotee, the atheist. And then the Maya Parita Gana. They're very much advanced in so-called education, but fool number one. Their knowledge, their real knowledge, is stolen by illusion. So the only fault, Ashuri Bhavan Ashrita, only fault is godliness. And therefore, we should know that the only cause is forgetfulness of Krishna. That is the cause. So we should try to preach this cult of Krishna consciousness to the aforementioned persons, even though not everyone will accept it. We know that. Just like there was one morning walk and devotees were kind of complaining to Srila Prabhupada that people were not listening to them. They weren't taking the books. They weren't accepting what they had to say, and Prabhupada stopped. So you think people are going to line up and listen to you and accept what you say? He said, therefore, you have to preach. And to preach, you have to read my books and study them so that you can become just like the expert lawyer. The expert lawyer knows the law books inside and out, and therefore he can defeat the opponents. So just like in the sky, there's only one moon and millions of stars, yet these millions of stars, they're useless. What is the value of millions of stars? But one moon can dissipate the whole darkness of the night. So Prabhupada said, similarly, at least those who have taken to Krishna consciousness should become like a moon and enlighten the world. These so-called glowworms, they'll not be able to do anything. Don't remain a glowworm. Just become a sun and a moon. Then people will be happy and you'll be happy. We may be very powerful as long as Krishna keeps us powerful, but we're not independently powerful. Even in the case of Arjuna, we're very much proud of our birth, this Janmasharya Shuttashri, in the material world. Everyone is proud of their birth, their riches, their education, their beauty, so-called. And all of these four things are retained as a result of pious activities. And as a result of impious activities, the opposite number occurs. Not a good birth in a nice family or nation, no wealth, poverty, no education, no beauty. And then Prabhupada was explaining how actually the American people in general were very fortunate. We're very fortunate that by the grace of Krishna, we've taken our birth here, because there's nice assets. We're born in a respectful nation. Of course, he said that 50 plus years ago, maybe not so true now. But he said it's a good opportunity to be conscious that by the grace of Krishna, we have these things. And there's no poverty, there's no scarcity, there's a chance of good education. You're all wealthy, beautiful, everything. Janmaeshwari Shuttashri. But if you do not become Krishna conscious, if we misuse these assets, then Punaramusiko Bhava. So everybody knows that Punaramusiko Bhava means, again, you become a mouse. So, Prabhupada used to tell these wonderful little stories, examples, and this was one of them. Sometimes nowadays they're kind of ignored or not mentioned. But anyway, a mouse came to a saintly person Sir, I'm very much troubled. Oh, what is that? Because generally people go to a saintly person for some material profit. That's the nature, the materialistic nature. Although we should go to a saintly person to learn about God. That's the real business, not for some material benefit. So anyway, the saintly person, sometimes they have to receive these demands. So, okay, what do you want? Well, sir, this cat is troubling me. The mouse is saying, this cat is troubling me so much. So what do you want? Let me become a cat. All right, you become a cat. So he became a cat. But a few days later, he was back. Sir, I'm still in trouble. What is that? The dogs trouble us very much. So now what do you want? Now I want to become a dog. All right, you become a dog. And then again, a few days later, and again another later. So that's nature's arrangement. One is weak, one is strong. That's nature's arrangement. And finally, he wanted to become a tiger. So by the grace of the saintly person, he became a tiger. And then when he became a tiger, he was intensely staring at that saintly person like, Sarivara Vijajal. So the saintly person asked him, now you want to eat me? Yes. All right, then again you become a mouse. By my grace, by my favor, you have become a tiger. So now I condemn you. Again become a mouse. Punar Musika Bhava. So by the grace of God, Krishna, we have wealth, beauty, education, by the grace of Krishna. But if we forget Krishna, then again, we become a mouse. Nobody will care for us. Oh my God, I was just remembering this morning, I was doing a broadcast and a mouse came in my office. I don't know if he's here or not. Maybe that, but I was thinking of this. Anyway, nobody will care for us. So we get power and opulence by the grace of Lord Krishna. But if it's misused, again, we become fallen. That is nature's law. So we're admonished, don't be proud that because I'm a man, I don't require protection. Arjuna was saying, Prashotamena soham rahita. Now I have no protection. Because why? Krishna had gone. He felt alone. He felt abandoned. Arjuna was a great hero. And yet he required protection. When Krishna was there, he had everything. And everything had been given to him by Krishna. His abilities, his weapons, everything. And now he was alone and he was lamenting, I have no protection. Purusha Tamena, Purusha means enjoyer, and the supreme enjoyer is Krishna. And if he does not give protection, we cannot enjoy our life. It's not possible. And therefore Krishna says he's giving protection, but not as much as he wants to give, because we're denying to accept it. In other words, he's offering everything and we're reversing, we're turning our back on him. But if we want full protection, then the condition is Sarva Dharma Paritoya Sammamikam Saranam Vraja. Give up your own manufactured, concocted means of protection and sense gratification. Give it up. Just surrender unto me, and I will give you protection. Protection from what? Protection from sinful activities. We are victimized by our sinful activities due to ignorance. We don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Out of ignorance, we do something and we become victimized by the laws of nature. But when we surrender to Krishna, he will give us his protection. We'll never be victimized again, because Krishna says, Desham satata yuktanam vajatam pritipurvakam uriyagam dharami tam yenamam upayantate. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me, the perfect recipe for surrender. Anyone can take to this Krishna consciousness. Krishna will guide us from within. He can speak to us and we can hear him, provided we are fully surrendered. Arjuna was standing on the battlefield, having a face-to-face personal conversation with Krishna. Krishna was hearing Arjuna, and Arjuna was hearing Lord Krishna. So now in his situation, it doesn't mean that Arjuna was not fully surrendered. He was fully surrendered, and he was fully protected by Krishna. But it's an instance when even a person like Arjuna will feel helpless without Krishna's presence. What to speak of ourselves? And he's showing that example. Now I'm bereft of the association of my dearest friend Krishna. Sakya. Sakya means friend. Sakya Priyena, not only a friend, but a very dear friend. Priyena Surit. There are different kinds of friends, but Surit is a friend who always thinks of how his friend will be happy. That's called Surit. And this description is given about the devotees also. Suradam Sarvabhutanam. A devotee is always thinking how the whole world can be happy. Suradam Sarva, not only human beings, but the animals, the birds, the trees, the beast, the trees. This is the hallmark signature of a devotee, a Vaishnav. He is not happy to see others in distressed, miserable condition. He wants to see everyone, all living entities, happy. Prahlad Maharaj, he was praying to Lord Nrsingadev to pacify him. You know, after Nrsingadev dispatched Hiranyakasipu, he was overcome and he was just in such a intense, angry mood, super ugra Nrsinga. And Prahlad was sent by Lord Brahma to pacify him. And Prahlad might have been very much afraid of this ferocious feature of the Lord Nrsinga, but he assured Nrsingadev, my dear Lord, don't think that I'm afraid of this ferocious feature of yours, and neither am I afraid of this materialistic existence. I'm quite confident that I have no fear, because he had practically seen that his father had threatened him in so many ways, and yet he was always protected. He knows that he's dedicated his life to Krishna, and he knows Krishna is not so ungrateful that he will not protect him. So even under seemingly adverse situations, Krishna will protect his devotees. One time, a devotee was asking Srila Prabhupada, what would happen if, for some reason, at the time of death, a devotee was unable or didn't think of Krishna? And Prabhupada looked at him and he replied, do you think that Krishna is an ungrateful man? So, but one who does not believe in Krishna thinks, I must protect myself. Those who are not God realized think they will be protected by their society, friendship, love, country, nation, so many things. Just like when flying in an airplane in the sky, there may be other airplanes at the same time. But if one of the airplanes is in danger, then no other airplane can help out. So similarly, we're also flying as an airplane in the open sky. We don't expect protection from our so-called society, friendship, and love materially. When there is a question of danger, we have to protect ourselves by our own strength. So therefore, if we actually want protection, we should take protection of the Supreme Lord Krishna or his devotees. Krishna is Suradam Sarvabhutanam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yogita Pasam Sarvalokam Suradam Sarvabhutanam. I am the friend of everyone. He can become the friend. He is living within our heart as a friend. But if we refuse the guidance of such a nice friend, of such a well-wisher, if we refuse his guidance, that is our misfortune. Krishna is so kind, so friendly. Just like one bird is flying from one tree to the other and another bird is following him. So similarly, we are flying from one body to another. Tanta dehantara prapti. And Krishna does not leave us. He is also going with us, trying to give us guidance like a father. The father naturally wants to guide his children without any motive, only love. That is Father's nature. And similar to Krishna, God, the Supreme Father, is naturally inclined to give us his protection. So therefore Krishna comes. Yadi yadi hi dharmasya glanir bharata parijhanaya sudanam vinasya sadhuskritam. His two businesses. First, preaching to these unfortunate souls who have forgotten Krishna. Forgotten Krishna, we unfortunate souls, paying most heavily illusion's tolls. Darkness around, all untraced. We are very intimately related. Krishna says, I'm the father of all living entities. So you come to me, come home, come back home. You'll be happy. I'm not poor. I can provide you with all necessities. Ekkoyo bahunam vidatati katmam. That one who can provide everyone with the necessities of life. I'm that person. And actually he's doing it. What is the government doing for anyone? What is the government doing for cats and dogs, the ants and the trees? They're not doing anything. Rather, they're cutting. When there is a jungle, they're cutting all the trees. No protection for the trees. They're cutting all the throats of the poor cows and animals for eating. And the government gives no protection. Only Krishna can give us protection. And therefore, we should always seek the protection of Krishna. That is our security, not any other thing. Just like we're preaching this Krishna consciousness, we're not devotees of the people in general. We are actually preaching without personal motivation. Any so-called political leader, he has some motive. When he becomes a devotee of the nation, he has some motive, but we have no such motive. We are simply plainly saying, you become happy by becoming a devotee of Krishna. You are now a devotee of your lust, anger, and illusion. You have become a devotee of so many false, foolish things. You simply become a devotee of Krishna, and then your problems will be solved. And that is the truth. We have to satisfy Krishna. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. Then we will be satisfied because Krishna is satisfied. And that is the actual process. And that is Krishna consciousness. So, Hare Krishna. I don't know if you want to say something, correct something, or have one of the enlightened souls who are there give us some actual enlightenment. But mostly I kind of stick to Prabhupada's words as much as I can, so I can try to avoid misrepresenting people, misleading people.
You may have some questions. Is that okay? Maybe you can take a question or two.
Okay.
All right. So we have Vijay Krishna Prabhu from Portland.
If you could speak like a little louder, because
This is Vijay Krishna Prabhu from Portland.
Yes. Malati, Mataji, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, my obeisances to you.
Mataji, my question is related to how expertly you taught us about the material world, which is a place of dualities, pain and pleasure. So my question is, how much importance should we give to material possessions while living in a place of dualities, like the material world?
How much, you said how much something we should give? What is,
How much importance
how much importance?
should we give to material possessions while living in the material world, which is a place where sometimes we have everything and 5 minutes later everything is gone?
Yes. Well, factually, speaking from experience, the only attention we should give to material items, including relationships, what have you, is to the degree they can be connected and used to Krishna's service. If we can't use something in Krishna's service, it's just going to be a distraction, a clutter in our life. Fortunately, most things can be used in Krishna's service. It's not difficult. But when we flip and we start thinking this is for me and my pleasure, my amusement, then what happens? Entanglement. We get caught by Maya. Prabhupada was asked one time, where is Maya? How do we know where she is? He went like this. He just put his hand up. Krishna, Maya. Krishna, Maya. So she's always there. You've heard how the spiritual life is like the razor's edge. If we're not careful. So we have to be very careful how we live our life and what we accept in our life and how we use it. And if we're a little careless, we run a great risk of forgetting Krishna.
Mataji, thank you for your answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And we have a comment from the audience. Goranga Trades says, this class was like water in the desert and a breath of fresh air, blowing away the smog in my mind. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
And Yashoda Dulal Prabhu has a question. Let me just unmute. Yashoda Dulal Prabhu. Go ahead, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Malati Devi.
Hare Bol, Yashodaji. Hare
How are
Krishna.
you? Wonderful to see you. You have such a wealth of association with Srila Prabhupada. Can you tell us one or two pastimes that you personally had that bring a smile to your face? I'm sure they all do, but something that you want to narrate to us.
So many things are there. It's funny, somebody asked me sometimes, what's your favorite one? And my mind blanks because I don't have a favorite one. Anything connected with Prabhupada is connected with Krishna, and therefore they're all favorite. Okay. You want a short one or a longer one?
Anything you wish.
Well, sometimes people ask me to tell this pastime that occurred in Shridham Mayapur. Before Shridham Mayapur was built up, there was just a dirt road, Bhaktivedanta Marg, and our project was out in the middle of a rice field, rice paddy. There weren't any chaiwalas or any wallas at all, where we just suddenly, there was just this open field, and there was a little shack with a grass roof. And this was going to be our first time together with Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur. So it was a big deal because Prabhupada's godbrothers, they'd actually been critical of him. And now he was bringing his Western disciples for the first time together. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu, my husband, had gone with him ahead of us. He was serving Prabhupada at that time as his secretary. And I came a little later with a group of devotees on a train and a bus. We got to Krishna Nagar, and then there was a bus. And my little daughter was with us. And you know, I wish I could say when I first arrived in the Holy Dham that, you know, I was overwhelmed with spiritual ecstasy, but actually I was kind of like bewildered and confused by the situation. And as soon as I was down, I was like looking around, there was just like there weren't any buildings, but I saw some kind of ragged looking tents. So I could understand probably that's where we'd be staying. And there was no plumbing, no water, just one hand cranked thing for the water to come out, and no drainage, so just mud all around. And the next thing I know, they're saying, okay, Prabhupada wants you to cook now. And I mean, I wasn't totally surprised by that. I kind of expected it might happen, because it generally did, if I would show up where my husband was and Prabhupada was there. And I had brought my trunk that had cooking items in it. And suddenly I was whisked away to see what my kitchen would be. Well, the kitchen turned out to be the other side of Prabhupada's Bhajan Kutir. There was no shelter in place, just the other side. And I pulled out my cooking equipment and looked around to see if there was anything to cook with. Very minimal. Had no idea where my daughter was. She was just gone. And I began cooking. And cooking, I think you meditate a lot on cooking too, because you have a brilliant cook for a wife. And so I was always thinking in my mind how to please Prabhupada when I would cook. And the situations weren't always conducive to easy cooking. And this was definitely one of those situations. And because I was constantly meditating on how to please him, he would tell me when something wasn't pleasing. And in this situation, it seems like every day something wasn't pleasing. And it was really awkward because I had brought with me my two stoves. One was this, kerosene thing where you like pump, 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 and then it explodes in your face and burns your eyebrows. And the other was a little bucket with bricks and mud inside and two iron bars across the top to put your pot. And when Prabhupada would have his massage, you knew to hurry up, because when the massage was done, he'd take his bath and he'd sit down, and it was no question of just now coming. You had to have it ready. And somehow during this situation, his servant who would give the massage didn't think to get another fire to heat the water for the Prabhupada's bath. So he'd come in and take one of mine. Well, that made it really difficult because the last thing in the meal would be the chapatis, and suddenly I'm without a burner. So that was another awkward part of it. And I guess the most awkward part was before I even would start cooking, having to go to the treasurer. I won't say his name because he's a really, really wonderful devotee. But the duty of the treasurer is to say no, especially if you don't have very much money, which we didn't. And I'd have to go there and beg for some money. And then I'd have to tell him what I was going to get. And I didn't always know what I was going to get, but because I hadn't gone to the market yet. And so I'd get the money. Sometimes my daughter would go with me, which added to a little bit of the tension. And then I'd have to go to Navadvip, across the river, because there was no sabji wala, there was no market in Mayapur at that point in time. And so I'd walk down to the ghat, to the boat ghat. And in those days, there was this guy that was standing between the road and the ghat. And he would try to get money out of people. He had no position, he had no role. He was just doing what people do, trying to get money out of people. And when he saw me, his eyes lit up, you know, because certainly I must be fabulously wealthy, but that wasn't the case. So I had to fight with that, then fight with the treasurer, then fight with that guy, then get on the boat, have another fight, because I knew what the cost of the ticket, you know, there wasn't tickets of those days, you just give them the money, but trying to get more out of me. So another fight. Then we'd get over the river, go up, and there's another one of those mysterious guys who try to extort money out of you. Then I'd get up, have to get a rickshaw and have a fight with the rickshaw wala, go to the sabji market, fight with the sabji walas, go to the fruit market, fight with the fruit markets, and then come back. And sometimes there was this one sweet shop that had really good mishti dai, and I'd get some of that for Srila Prabhupada, or Eskula, you know, with his permission, I could do that. But another fight. So it just, you know, and then the whole thing on the way back, it just, you know, my whole morning was just like this battle. And then I didn't even have time to compose myself. By the time I'd get back, I just had to start cooking. And I'm all the time thinking, just, I want to do this right. I want to please Srila Prabhupada. And every day it kind of seemed there was something that wasn't quite right. Like, for example, one time I was making this eggplant sabji and I was cutting them up in very little pieces. And then I give, you know, prasad, and I was kind of thinking that day, there was a little bit of pride that kept in, because I was kind of thinking, maybe I got it right today. Seemed like that. He takes a spoon, he pulls up some of that eggplant sabji, and he goes, "Oh, so you were feeding me worm?" And somehow or other, into one of those little tiny pieces of eggplant, there was a little tiny worm that managed to be unseen, but in the hot liquid cooking, he came out. And Prabhupada takes a spoon, and what does he get? The worm. So I'm just like, oh my God, am I ever going to get it right? So I'm trying a little harder. The next day, I thought maybe I had got it. And I came in, I put the plate down, I was kind of holding my breath, and he looks. Now, every day on the plate, in addition to the food, you put a little salt, a little pepper, thin pieces of ginger, and some nimbu. So I had that. So he looks at the plate and he goes, "Oh, so much salt." And then I just like, at that point, I thought, I probably shouldn't be doing this service. It just doesn't, you know, I mean, in addition to that, I had a husband and a daughter to, you know, like to deal with. I suddenly thought, maybe I'm not the one to be doing this service, because I'm not coming, you know, I'm not doing it. There's always something wrong. So then I'm thinking, I'll find somebody else. I'll find someone else to cook. And when I got that idea in my mind, I suddenly started feeling like a little less pressurized. So I thought, okay, I'll tell him tomorrow. So tomorrow came, but it turned out his godbrothers were invited to lunch. So I thought, well, definitely I won't be cooking today, because one of the complaints of the godbrothers was that he had a woman cooking for him. So I thought, well, I won't be cooking today. The next thing you know, devotee, Prabhupada wants you, Prabhupada calling for you. So I went in and he just started telling me what he wanted for lunch. So I thought, under the circumstances, I couldn't mention my plan. So I just, okay, you know, and I was going to cook for him, but his godbrother Ananda was going to cook for the others. So I went and I did my cooking. And I go into the Bhajan Kutir. So in the back, there's a little tiny space where the some stuff was kept, and his secretary and his servant would also be there. And the door was very elegant. It was a rice sack cut in half. It was just this, like, rice bag making like a curtain. So I pulled it aside a little bit and I looked in, and it was actually a very astounding thing. There was only there was a little electricity in Mayapur at that time, which was mostly off. But at that point, we had one little bulb in his room and one on the stage. So the little bulb was dangling from a wire. It was on, and I was seeing these saintly Vaishnavas. I mean, up until that moment, I was kind of like, we were thinking as God brothers, those people, But all of a sudden I saw that actually they were really saintly, elderly, venerable Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada was sitting at the end of the room, they were on his side, and he was just like glowing. I mean, the light bulb was totally insignificant. Prabhupada was glowing. And it was like he was a diamond in a setting, and the godbrothers were the setting. If you have a diamond, and if you just have a diamond, I mean, they're nice, but you put it in a setting, and this setting enhances the beauty of the diamond. So that's what I was seeing. And then I felt somewhat intimidated to go in there. And it wasn't really my normal, wasn't so often that I became intimidated, but I was intimidated. So I just pulled my sari way over my head, like over my head. And I got on my hands and knees, and just my hands were showing. And I was walking in on my knees and my elbows with the plate in my hand, and I put it down in front of him. I made me obeisances. I heard him say, "Yes, she cooks for me." And I criticized her. And the minute he said that, I just like realized my foolishness, because it was true. I was thinking, I'm thinking, I want to please you, I want to please you. And then he's telling me, and I'm being criticized, So it was like I had that complete clearing of my consciousness at that moment. Because yes, she cooks for me, and I criticize her. And then he said, and I'm like backing out at this point, but she would slit her throat for me, and I would do the same for her. So when he said that, I also realized he was speaking about me in that instant, but he was also letting them know what was his relationship, what was our relationship with him. And I went out. The next day, no question of a replacement. Like, it was just like flipping the page, It's like I had the same fights, the same arguments, the same everything, but it was totally ecstatic just by the flip of the consciousness, So that was one of my most wonderful experiences.
Thank you so much, Malti Devi. That was very moving. And no matter how many times we hear this story, it always moves the heart. And the first time I've heard it from you, this is a legendary story, and it inspires so much love in all of us, his grandchildren, and how much love he had for his children, and how much more, how much love that we can also feel that, yes, Prabhupada has that love for us too, because
yes,
grandchildren are also dear to the grandfather.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very, very inspiring every time we hear this. So thank you so much for sharing. We are just about out of time, actually. It's about 9:20. There's a couple other questions, but there's one other question. I don't know if you can take that. Sharanagati asks, you are the perfect person to ask this. What have you found to be the most effective in curbing material desires? This is Sharanagati McLean.
Hare Krishna. Well, I know what is the most effective. Whether or not I've realized it is another story. But I mean, the main thing is don't give them the time of day. Don't start thinking, they pop up. Don't give them the time of day. Because once you start thinking about it, even if you're not thinking of, or you may be thinking, well, I'm not doing anything, I'm just thinking about it, but I'm not going to do it. But that's the beginning, the contemplation. So the example is given in the Bhagavad Gita, has the rivers flow into the ocean, and the ocean doesn't overflow. It just, they go continuously. Let them flow right out of your mind. Another one may be coming, let it flow. Don't take action and don't think about it. Remember Krishna. Grab your bead bag. And like when you're chanting, okay, all this stuff can happen sometimes. So Haridas Thakur, what did he do? That prostitute came to seduce him. Well, our mind is like that prostitute. She's trying to seduce us, trying to pull in. She does it in different ways. Don't give her the time of day. Please sit down. Please wait. I'll come back to you. In the meantime, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so very much. If you can hang on just for another couple minutes, and we'll open up the gates for all the devotees to say a quick Haribol to you in person. If just take a minute or two, I think devotees will really appreciate it, if that's okay with you. And I'll request His Grace Neelmani Prabhu also to offer a word of thanks. But just before that, a quick announcement. So just upcoming events on this channel. So this is a Transcendental Week. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 8 p.m. We just had Her Grace Malti Devi Dasi today. And then on Thursday, we have His Grace Ravindra Sarup Prabhu.
Yay.
Yeah. And Saturday, we have His Holiness Amrita Swami.
Hare Krishna.
And Sunday, on how to communicate with devotees. So definitely stay tuned for that. And with that, I'll request His Grace Neelmani Prabhu to offer a word of thanks, and then I'll open it up to the other devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So thank you again so much, Malti Prabhu, and we hope you will accept our invitation again when we can schedule another date for you to come back and continue. The Prabhupada stories are just so amazing. I just wanted you to know, Malti Prabhu, that maybe it was 1968 or 1969, when I was maybe 10 years old. I think you and the other 4 couples and Prabhupada came to visit us in London. And,
Hare Krishna.
And my mother remembers that very fondly still.
Oh.
So that was a wonderful,
how wonderful
memory. So she remembers you. I don't have such a good memory and recollection, but no.
But I'm always amazed when people like you will say, when I was a little kid, you came to my house. My parents invited, you and Prabhupada. So I'm always amazed by this, by your good fortune.
Yes. Certainly my good fortune. So
Yeah.
thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank all the devotees for joining regularly, and request them all to please continue joining every day and take advantage of this wonderful nectar we're getting in these otherwise unfortunate times. So thank you again so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Haribol, Malati.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All goes to Shri
Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Mataji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Hare
Mataji, thank you very much.
Prajulila. Wait, Prajulila. Go back to Prajulila. I heard your mother is going through a transition, and I just wanted to let you know that her name will be under Lord Nrsingadeva's foot tomorrow morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Eileen, right? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, Rosalind.
Rosalind. Okay, somehow I got it wrong. Yeah. All right. Hari Bola Kavir. Hari Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Malti Mataji. Thank you very
And
much.
Tulsi Rani. Hari Krishna. I haven't seen you in so long.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hari Krishna.
Mataji, Dakshina from Boston. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Abhi hamara
Hare Krishna, Malati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Malati Prabhu from Yarnath and Kanta Bhakti.
Hari Bol. Hari Krishna.
So good to see you. So good to see you. Thank you.
I haven't seen you two in a long time either.
I miss you.
We miss you.
Thanks for coming to Towaco in a way.
I have to say, I love this. I love the lockdown. I love traveling around on the internet like this and meeting devotees all over the world. You know, in one day I went to Moscow, Siberia, Austin, Texas, and one other place. I didn't have to pack my suitcase. I didn't have to get a visa.
Jet lag.
Hare Krishna. Is that Swarga? Hare Krishna.
So
great to hear you.
Lots of love from Portugal. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Where are you, Raja?
Right.
Oh, maybe they don't hear me.
I think it's me.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
Very well. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.